This video isn't anything terribly specific. It's not a review, it's not a comparison. It's just footage from the Sony FX30 because I recently picked it up to add it to my camera lineup, and I wanted to just film in different environments, different lighting situations, different autofocus situations to give you some examples here to watch. So I decided to film a little bit around my house, going down to the kitchen, getting some tea or morning coffee, and I filmed mostly in S-Cinetone, but at times you'll see here that I do a little bit of color grading on the S-Cinetone. I find that the S-Cinetone is a little bit undersaturated, so occasionally I will add some contrast and saturation. I don't know about you, but I really like lens flares, and I was able to get some really good ones here in my kitchen as the morning light came through using the Tamron 20-40 lens, which is a full frame lens, but works just fine on the Sony FX30. You just get that more narrow field of view, but I really liked the morning sun, and so I filmed it for a bit as I continued to heat up my water for my morning tea. I just really like the sun, how it comes through my kitchen window in the morning, so I just thought it would be some really great cinematic B-roll of me making some tea. And since the sun is coming in at an angle and kind of hitting the front of the lens, you can see how the contrast changes as my hand blocks the sunlight from hitting the lens, and I kind of like the low contrast look you get when that happens. But let's head down to my office where I will be using the camera most of the time, and I wanted to film it as I came into my office to see if and how well it picked up my face and or my eye in autofocus. And you can see there, it actually did pick me up fairly well the first time I came in, despite the fact that it's not very well lit at this time of day in my office. And if we watch that again, we can actually see the screen recording of the FX30 and how it finds and tracks my face, loses me real quick but catches me again and generally stays in focus. However, that's actually the second take of that shot. If we watch this other take, which was actually earlier in the day where there was more light, you can see that the FX30 doesn't find me right away. It takes a second. I'm still blurry, and there it finally catches me. Unfortunately, I didn't record the screen on this take, but I did the take a few times because of this first shot. It didn't catch me immediately, and I have found that to be a big difference in the FX30 versus the A7 IV. The FX30 just doesn't always catch me in face detection. But all of these scenes are fairly low lit, and I don't use the camera mounted low like that most of the time. I most often have it mounted up higher, giving you this wider shot of me at my desk, and this is where I have the camera mounted for all of my virtual meetings. And if we look at the screen recording, you can see that the FX30 basically sits on my eye and keeps me in autofocus. But I find even in this view, the FX30 does occasionally lose me and focuses on the background. But in this shot, it was pretty good. So we'll go back to this low angle and low lit shot. I'm on the Viltrox 13mm f1.4 at 1.4. Gives you about the same field of view as about a 20mm lens on full frame. And if we watch the screen recording, we can see that it basically holds my eye for the most part. It does lose me when I go almost full profile on my face, and I find that's where it does struggle. I also found that it struggled when I wanted to reach for my tea mug here and have the camera focus on something in the background. And if you saw that, I'll play it again, the focus jumps and then kind of goes to the background. And I tried this shot several times with several different autofocus settings. I even tried different lenses to see if it was the Viltrox lens or a different lens. And I had the autofocus on wide, and I think when I remove the tea mug, it needs to find something to focus on. And since the surface of the desk, just where the mug was taken from, is a little bit closer to the frame, I think that the autofocus tries to grab it first, then decides maybe that's not what it was supposed to grab and shifts to the background. It took me several attempts in several different autofocus settings to get a good automatic focus pull, but it was still never perfect, and I found it did better when I put the tea mug back into the frame and had it focus pull to the mug versus away from it. So after about 15 attempts of trying to get it to autofocus, I decided maybe we should go out and film somewhere else. I guess I'll just send this text message real quick, and I reckon we can go and film in a differently lit environment. So come with me. My wife and I are doing some drawings for my mom for Christmas in this nice leather-bound book with this raised heart design on the front. And the day I was going to do some drawings, it was kind of cloudy outside. The light wasn't coming into our living room very much, so I wanted to get it out and kind of film with the FX30 and get some, I don't know, maybe more cinematic footage of this old school style book. And the lighting varied. I actually filmed this on a couple of different days, so I cheated a bit, but I just wanted to again see the autofocus performance, the low light performance on some of the shots. I was between ISO 1600 and around 3200. Sometimes I had it on manual focus. I think here I had it on autofocus, so it was grabbing my hand versus the paper. But either way, I thought these shots looked nice, so I wanted to include them as more examples of how the FX30 performs in an overcast day coming into some fairly distant windows. However, I will say this, I tried to brighten up the room with a Philips Hue bulb and a lamp that was behind me. And if you watch very closely, I don't know if YouTube will show it, but there is some video roll from that Philips Hue lamp. So be careful of that. But if I had noticed, I would have been able to get rid of it with the variable shutter feature on the FX30. But for now, let's maybe go outside. I think that's enough inside shots in dimly lit and kind of poorly lit rooms. So we'll just put on a jacket and head outside. So I wanted to go out to my backyard. It was a little breezy today, which was a good autofocus test for the FX30. These leaves here in the front were occasionally catching the autofocus of the FX30, but you can see right there that it jumped to kind of that middle set of trees. And I have it in face auto detection so that it can hopefully pick me up right there, but as you can see, it just doesn't quite find me. And so I will just casually move out of frame. And I decided to do the shot again, this time leaving more open space with fewer leaves in view, and the wind had actually died down. And you can see there I added a little bit of contrast and saturation from the S-Cinetone. But as I kneel down, let's see if the camera catches me. Yes, that was actually quite a nice focus pull onto my face. And as I get up and move on, I wanted to see what the camera grabbed, and it grabbed the fence in the back and then came back forward. So let's do this shot again. This is a second take. There was less wind. The wind had died down a little bit, but as I walk into frame and kneel down, let's see how the camera does. And fairly smooth focus pull. It found my face and focused on me. And let's see how it does when I leave the frame. What's it going to grab when I leave the frame? And it grabs the fence real quick, but then very quickly grabs the trees in front. It was fairly smooth, although I wish it would have just decided to grab the trees in front and blurred out the background. And I went down the street to get a shot in the morning sun, and I used the Tamron 50-400 here. The sun was at my back, therefore hitting the front of the lens, giving it this low contrast look. And you can see I go out of focus as I kind of get closer to the camera there. And you know, a little walking shot here of my feet. And I wanted to get some shots shooting directly into the sun with me walking into frame to see, you know, does it hold me in focus? Looks like it does fairly well. Walk up around this tree. What could I be doing? Oh, that's right. I'm checking to see if the camera picks me up in autofocus as I come into view around the tree and hang out there for a minute. And as I round the tree and come towards the camera with, of course, some proverbial B-roll shots of my feet, I wanted to see how the FX30 handled face auto detection and basically can it find me and keep me in focus as I approach the camera. Now granted, there's plenty of sunlight, so the camera has plenty of light to work with, and that does help the autofocus on the FX30. As I kind of just hang out here in front of the camera, just wanted to see how well it performs if it holds me in focus. A little action shot of me taking out my other camera and at the very least pretending to take a photo of something in the distance. I think there was a hawk up there, but I didn't quite get it because my camera wasn't quite set up for the shot, and well, the hawk was flying fairly fast and went out of frame anyway. So I guess I'll just move on out of this frame and see how well the FX30 picks up the tree in the background. But before I go, just wanted to put in one more shot of me walking towards the camera on a bright sunny day to just see how the autofocus works out here with me being the main subject. So I wanted to bring you back to this view real quick, which is where I have the camera mounted most of the time here in my home office, which is where I have it mounted for, again, all of my virtual meetings. So I can do work here, but still look at the camera because my laptop screen is underneath the camera. And I've been mounting my camera up there for my YouTube videos as well, at least for the second side shot for cutaway shots, because I found that if I mount it over there, then it sees all the mess that you can't see in this view. But besides all of that, I just wanted to do this video because I wanted anyone that may be looking for an FX30 to have as high quality of footage as I could offer, because I find that watching those things online as much as possible helps me decide on if I maybe want to buy that product or not. And cameras are expensive, lenses are expensive. By the way, we're on the Viltrox 13mm f1.4. I got that lens specifically for the FX30 because I found that even my 17-28 Tamron here worked fine in that position, but I like a shallower depth of field, and when you put the 17-28 you have to push the camera further away. It just wasn't giving me what I wanted, so I went ahead and got a dedicated prime lens for the FX30. And I think so far one of the big disappointments that I've had in the FX30 is its autofocus performance here in this view. When I'm in this view, I'm often facing this way, and although face detection is on, and yes, I'm giving the camera not a great side view of my face, I find the FX30 does worse when I'm in a profile view than does my A7 IV. My A7 IV never has a problem when it's over there. It just finds and locks onto me the entire time. The first time I recorded with the FX30 in this view, it just kind of constantly lost me and would focus on the background over there. I've changed some settings, and sometimes I have to put it on zone to make sure maybe it's only looking for faces in this part of the frame versus the entire frame. And it's done better. I can't remember the exact transition and lock-on settings that I have it on right now. I think it's on 2 and 2 or maybe 3 and 3. But, you know, it's the best that I can do with the camera and these settings and the situation. And I got the FX30 kind of for this look and for some other reasons that I will talk about hopefully in a different video. Look for that video in my library, but sometimes I do take my cameras out for live event recordings, and having a video first cinema-centric camera is much better than the camera that I replaced, which was the Sony A7 III. The FX30 is designed to be a video camera, to be recording for long periods of time and have some more cinema-like features or video camera-like features versus a photographic camera. So anyway, I hope some of this footage has been helpful, maybe a little entertaining. I tried to make the flow of the previous part of this video a little bit more of a story of a little bit more of my day, incorporating some of the pros and cons of the FX30. And the last thing is that, remember, you can use your full frame lenses with the FX30. And I recently got the Tamron 50-400 lens, and one night I was driving home from work and it was already dark, the moon was coming up, and I noticed a great shot, and I pulled over immediately and I put the Tamron 50-400 on the FX30, which effectively gives me a 600mm zoom, and I got some awesome footage of the moon. And so I thought maybe I would leave you with that because it's quite spectacular. So enjoy. See you next time.